Good. Very
Thank you,
good.
Maharaj.
Thank you. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. How does it end? Hare Hare. Maha Mantra, the great mantra for deliverance. And okay. I'm looking for some document that I was supposed to read from for part of this presentation, but it disappeared. It fell somewhere in the snowstorm. But I know what it says. So the image that you see on the screen is a painting, a photograph of a painting from the British Empire rule period of time, the second half of the 1800s. And it's a painting of Shantipur along the bank of the Ganga. And so Shantipur was a place of beauty at that time, and it still is. This is what the home of Advaita Acharya looks like today. I don't read Bengali, but it probably says home of Advaita Acharya or something like that. And it's on a large mango orchard field, a favorite place for people to come and picnic and play their loud music. Unfortunately, they use it for a party playground rather than a place of worship. For the devotees, it's a place of worship. As you're looking at the temple from the entryway, if you were to go facing the direction you're facing around to the left, is another very nice place. I couldn't find a photograph of it, but it's a place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, and Advaita Acharya would sit together and make plans for the spreading of Krishna consciousness. It's a very sacred place. It's in that place that Srila Prabhupada would come and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, like we just did together, for extended periods of time. There's a very nice Prabhupada story in connection with that place. There was a pujari, an elder Bengali Brahmana pujari, who one day he saw a sannyasi sitting, it was Prabhupada, sitting by that place. He marked the date on his calendar. He was sitting and chanting and weeping and crying. And the pujari wondered, is he okay? So we went back and spoke to him and asked him, Swamiji, is everything all right? And Prabhupada shared with him that my Guru Maharaj has given me mission impossible. And I'm here to pray for the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and Advaita Acharya at this place where they made their plans for spreading the chanting of the holy name throughout the land. And I'm praying for their mercy, because I'm going to need their mercy to make this mission successful. And he was tearful. He was very emotional. Some years passed, and that very day, he took a train from Navadvip to Calcutta. From Calcutta, he took transportation to the boatyard, where he boarded the boat, where his younger son, greeted him and escorted him onto the boat. It was just before his departure, in other words. Many years passed, and that same pujari saw some Western Hare Krishna devotees coming to Shantipur, and their reputation spread quickly because, white elephants in a place where there's Bengali people, they want to know what's the story behind these white elephants, the Western devotees. After some time, the man was given a Back to Godhead magazine, and he saw in the corner of the Back to Godhead magazine, along the masthead, a picture of Prabhupada, and he put two and two together. He said, that's the very same sannyasi that was here years ago, crying, chanting all day long, praying for the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and Advaita Acharya to have his mission successful. So that took place right here, that you see in the photograph, the temple at Shantipur, the home of Advaita Acharya. Here's the main deity. It's actually a deity of Advaita Acharya. And to our left, or to the deity's right, is a very nice painting of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and apparently to our right, or the deity's left, is one sadhu who was there for some time, a celebrated sadhu. This is the appearance day of Advaita Acharya. Here's a drawing of the marks on the feet of Advaita Acharya. And you're all familiar with this painting. This is the panchatattva painting. Little ISKCON history. Before there were deities, we had what Prabhupada was calling a Guru Gauranga altar. And the Gauranga part of the Guru Gauranga altar was what you see in this painting. There were devotees that had never painted before. Prabhupada requested them to learn, and their method of learning was to make panchatattva paintings. We grew up with this panchatattva painting. I'm very familiar with it. So whatever, in temples, there weren't deities. It was just Guru Gauranga altar. And then eventually in homes, and it became a little more matured as time passed. As you can see in the painting, the figure on our far left, or Lord Chaitanya's far right, is an accentuated form of Advaita Acharya. And in the Mayapur temple, this is the deity form of Advaita Acharya. Fast forward over several decades, and this is Advaita Acharya of the Panchatattva. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find Adi Lila, chapter 6, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu. Let's go back to the Panchatattva. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear about Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. Lord Chaitanya, of course, is at the center, and to his right is Lord Nityananda, and to his right is Advaita Acharya. So each of those 3 Prabhus, they're Vishnu Tattva forms, course, many of you know this, but some of you may be newer, so no problem. We'll just, even if you know. Vishnu Tattva means a category, it's the same category as Krishna himself, but in various expansions, as in the first expansion is Lord Nityananda, same as Balaram, the first expansion of Krishna. And to his right, or to our left, is Advaita Acharya with the white beard. And that is Vishnu Tattva form of Mahavishnu. There you see a nice illustration. Mahavishnu, as you know, is the source of the so many universes, unlimited numbers of universes. He's the source of those universes. So for the purpose of creation, you see at the top of the painting, that's Krishna, and Krishna is radiating light, and that light is coming within a cloud, the cloud of the material energy called the Mahatattva. And Mahavishnu is within that cloud, and the universes are within that cloud of the Mahatattva. That's a little detail, especially those of you that are newer. You can read at your leisure Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 6, where in verses 14 and 15, along with the Prabhupada's purport, explains that Mahavishnu is the upadan, or material cause, and Krishna is the nimitta, or remote cause. And Mahavishnu generates the universes. So similarly, Mahavishnu is his function in the spiritual world is to generate the universes or cause the material creation, although there's the efficient or remote cause, Krishna, because he's the cause of all causes. It's a little detailed, but you can read about it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But that's his function, Mahavishnu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would call Advaita Acharya, he would sometimes just simply call Nara, Nara, Nara. And the call means Lord Vishnu. So as Mahavishnu, in the form of Advaita Acharya, called Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to descend, we'll see some images shortly, Krishna, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accepted Advaita Acharya in that capacity, the form of Lord Vishnu. Now, in the panchatattva, Advaita Acharya's function, and we heard already, it was to assist Lord Chaitanya in the propagation of the Sankirtan movement. Very nice ISKCON painting. Dancing, chanting, and glorifying and celebrating the holy names of the Lord. Now here's a photograph of a deity of Advaita Acharya without a beard. And the document that I can't find, but I'll tell you what it says. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, when describing Advaita Acharya, Bhaktisiddhanta very specifically describes that Advaita Acharya did not have a beard. I'll repeat. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, in commentary Bhaktisiddhanta wrote about of Chaitanya Bhagavat, he indicates very, very explicitly, some say that Advaita Acharya had a beard. He didn't have a beard. He was like emphatic. However, in a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita given by our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, he describes that all of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates were clean-shaven except one, Advaita Acharya. And Lord Chaitanya wanted his followers to be cleanly shaven, but he never corrected Advaita Acharya because he saw him as his superior. And that was a problem rasa-wise or rasika-wise for Advaita Acharya, we'll hear shortly. And so here's some nice paintings by some nice ISKCON artists that show Advaita Acharya without a beard, because Prabhupada said he didn't have a beard. And Bhaktisiddhanta said he had a... Prabhupada said he had a beard, and Bhaktisiddhanta said he didn't have a beard. So, flip a coin. And, the controversy isn't new to life, and it's not new to ISKCON life. But our temple in Mayapur, they like him with a beard. So, he has a beard. This is our panchatattva deities in Sridham Mayapur. Someday, if you haven't been, please go to Mayapur and take darshan of the panchatattva deities. And this is a close-up of Advaita Acharya in his deity form in Sridham Mayapur. So a little bit about his life. He was born in a Brahmin family. He was a very strict Vaishnava, and we find lots of detail described in Chaitanya Bhagavat about the anxiety he felt. Advaita Acharya felt a lot of anxiety that the Brahmanas, because Navadvip was like an intellectual headquarters for all of India. There are some places, their name is Vidyanagar. There was a Vidyanagar within Navadvip. Even today, there's a part of Navadvip that's Vidyanagar. It was a seat of high learning. Many, many, many exalted, elevated, learned brahmanas were living there. Something like what we would know today as like Harvard and Yale and Princeton. It was a place of high intellectuals. But his despair, you see Advaita Acharya's picture, there's a tear in his eye. He was feeling very sad that they're misusing all of their capacity as brahmanas for material prosperity. Worshipping this way, worshipping that way for material prosperity, and neglecting the personality of Godhead. So that was a source of great anxiety and unhappiness for Advaita Acharya. Being an elevated Vaishnava, he knew the scriptures very well, and in this lamentation or concern, he remembered a verse from the scripture. Here's the verse from the scripture. It's quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas that says, Sri Krishna, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, sells himself to a devotee who offers merely a tulsi leaf and a palmful of water. From Bhagavad Gita, Patram, Pushpam, Palam Toyam. The verse. So in this Hari Bhakti Vilas verse, Advaita Acharya took great inspiration. He not just offered water, but Ganges water, and tulsi leaves and manjaris, and calling out in a loud voice for the personality of Godhead to descend, because he understood it's only the personality of Godhead who can change this unfortunate condition, even in this place of high Brahminical culture. Their people are materialistic, but to speak of the rest of Kali Yuga. So he was very concerned. And we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita that there were three primary reasons, external reasons, for Lord Chaitanya's descent. And what is that? One of them is what you see in this picture. The loud calling of Lord Chaitanya, of Advaita Acharya, for Lord Chaitanya to appear. And the second reason, Krishna made a promise that he would appear, Ritranaya sadhunam vinarshaya chaduskritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge, that he would appear and give protection to his devotees. And the third reason, external reason, was it was time in the beginning of the age of Kali for the Yuga avatar to appear. So to fulfill those three purposes, external purposes, Lord Chaitanya made his appearance. After Lord Chaitanya was born, there's a wonderful description of Mother Sachi and Advaita Acharya coming, bringing gifts because they understood the Lord has appeared. And after his appearance, Advaita Acharya made an additional residence, as a wealthy person may have more than one residence, very near to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's home and very near to Srivas Pandit home. So in that home, he would regularly conduct Srimad Bhagavatam class early in the morning. And as you may know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had an elder brother. He had an elder brother. And his elder brother was named Vishwarup. So every day, Vishwarup would do his deity worship early in the morning, and he'd go and attend Advaita Acharya Srimad Bhagavatam class. But it wasn't a 45-minute class. In fact, it went all morning long. And his mother was in anxiety. He hasn't even eaten breakfast. You know mothers. And so she would send, in this image you see painting, little Nimai to go get his brother Vishwarup to come back for lunch. So Vishwarup would come back. You see him pulling on his dhoti there. Come back for lunch. Mother says she wants you to come back for lunch. So he would come, and he would take his bath in the Ganga, have his lunch, and go right back to Advaita Acharya's home for more Srimad Bhagavatam class. And this would happen every day. Because he was a Brahmana, he didn't have to go to work. He's a young man. So they started speaking about he's too much attached to Advaita Acharya and the Srimad Bhagavatam. We better hurry up and get him married. Those of you from India, you know about that story. So Vishwarup got wind that that's what their plan was. So you know what he did? He left home, took sannyas, and didn't come back. And you know what Mother Sachi did? Mother Sachi started blaming Advaita Acharya. Don't do that, because Lord Chaitanya considers that an offense. A great personality like Advaita Acharya being criticized for speaking Srimad Bhagavatam and inspiring someone in a life of devotion, and the mother is going to criticize Advaita Acharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, one of his names, of course, is Sachi Sutta, but Sachi Devi, he adored his mother as his mother adored him. They're eternal associates. But when he heard that she had criticized Advaita Acharya, she said he was given the wrong name. Shouldn't be called Advaita, is Dvaita. And he shouldn't be called Acharya because he's not teaching by example. He's got the wrong name. She started speaking badly about him. You know how people do sometimes. Even nice mothers, they sometimes do that. So Lord Chaitanya went straight to Sachi's home with his hand raised, ready to hit her. Of course, he wouldn't hit her. But people cried out loudly, "What are you doing? You can't hit your mother. She's the mother of the universe. You can't do this." But she's offended Advaita Acharya. She has to fall at the feet of Advaita Acharya. Otherwise, I won't forgive her. He was teaching a lesson about criticizing elevated personalities. Not just sannyasis. Advaita Acharya was grahastha with many children. But you don't criticize a Vaishnava. Don't criticize a Vaishnava, or you'll displease Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they quickly ran to Advaita Acharya's home, told him, "What's going on? You come immediately." And Advaita Acharya said, "I can't have Mother Sachi fall at my feet. I'll fall at her feet." And he fell at her feet. And it's a nice narration. So she understood the seriousness because she has affection for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, her son, as Advaita Acharya. So she profusely apologized. She fell at his feet. No, don't fall at my feet. And because Advaita Acharya, because Sachi fell at his feet, he then elevated Sachi. Never do this again. And Advaita Acharya was so astonished at this pastime. He knew what Lord Chaitanya was doing. So privately, shortly thereafter, he requested Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to show him his universal form. And so Lord Chaitanya did. This is described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Reference only is made in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Imagine seeing the universal form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas, he stayed for some time at Advaita Acharya's home. That was a trick, a long story, because of the time that we have available. Well, I'll say, when he accepted sannyas, Lord Chaitanya accepted sannyas when he was 24. That's pretty young to accept sannyas. But he was determined. And Lord Nityananda tricked him. Instead of going to Vrindavan, he tricked him to go to Shantipur, where he stayed at the home of Advaita Acharya for a week. And Mother Sachi cooked for him for a week. And then he left at her request. Instead of for Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left for Puri. And after staying in Puri just a short time, he made a tour of South India in the name of looking for his brother Vishwarup, who had taken sannyas, because he heard he had gone to South India. But of course, he's omniscient. But that was the excuse. For 2 years, he traveled in South India. And when he came back to Puri, Lord Chaitanya's associate, his servant, was Krishna Das. It's a very detailed description, but Krishna Das had fallen into Maya. Can you imagine falling into Maya as the personal servant of Lord Chaitanya? But he did. And Lord Chaitanya came and rescued him. It's another nice long story. So Lord Chaitanya, when they got back to Puri, Lord Chaitanya said, "Krishna Das, our travel is over. You can go wherever you like. You're not going to serve me anymore. Goodbye." Because of that offense of leaving Lord Chaitanya alone, and Lord Chaitanya had to risk his life and go rescue him. And so the devotees in Puri were very kind to Krishna Das. They made an arrangement for some service for Lord Chaitanya. Krishna Das's assignment was to go to Navadvip and inform all the devotees, "Lord Chaitanya has come back. Lord Chaitanya has come back. come see him. It's time for Rath Yatra shortly. And so Krishnadas had that nice service. And when he went to Navadvip, everyone was ecstatic. So what did they do? They went to Advaita Acharya's home and had a big festival for several days. But Krishnadas was requested instead to not only Paramananda Puri wanted not to wait for Advaita Acharya's festival to be over. He wanted to go quickly. Paramananda Puri was a godbrother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Diksha Guru, Ishwara Puri. He was very affectionate to Lord Chaitanya. He wanted to go. So Kamalakanta Vishwas was his travel companion. So who's Kamalakanta Vishwas? Kamalakanta Vishwas was the personal secretary of Advaita Acharya. Great personalities, they would have sometimes a personal secretary, which means he took care of all of his personal affairs. So because of knowing his personal affairs, he knew, Kamalakanta Vishwas knew, that Advaita Acharya had a debt to King Prataparudra. That's mentioned in terms of rupees, although there weren't rupees at that time. So whatever, 300 rupees worth of debt. So when they reached Puri, after situating Paramananda Puri in his residence, Kamalakanta Vishwas wrote a letter, a little note, to the king. And in the letter, he said to the king, Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu. And so he is to be honored like anything, as Lord Vishnu. And please excuse him, second part, of this 300 rupee debt. Now somehow, nobody knew how, but that letter to King Prataparudra got into the hand of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was really upset. He said, Kamalakanta Vishwas should not come and see me during the whole time that he's in Puri. I don't want to even see his face. Whoa. Lord Chaitanya was fire. And so different devotees tried to do different things. Advaita Acharya eventually came. His personal secretary was banned from Lord Chaitanya's association. And Advaita Acharya said to Kamalakanta, you're foolish. You're receiving such mercy from Lord Chaitanya. You have no idea. And then he explained, I have tried in so many ways to have Lord Chaitanya punish me, scold me, admonish me, but instead he just holds me up and praises me and falls at my feet and honors me as an elder. So you know what I did? I made a plan. I started speaking impersonal philosophy. Yoga Vashishta, which considers liberation the ultimate goal of life. Lord Chaitanya heard that I was speaking Yoga Vashishta, and he came and was very angry. And he treated me with disrespect. And I started dancing and dancing. At last, he's showing his superiority. You have no idea how fortunate you are. So he then persuaded his secretary, Kamalakanta Vishwas, to count his blessings. The intimacy of being reprimanded by a superior is due to intimacy. He's treated you with such intimacy. He never treated me like that. So Lord Chaitanya then Advaita Acharya went and expressed his dismay. You've never treated me so affectionately like you treated my secretary. You've never scolded me. I had to speak impersonal philosophy before you scolded me. And Lord Chaitanya smiled and said, bring him here. And Advaita Acharya was upset. Wait, now you're, you haven't treated me like that either. This isn't right. What are you doing? So when Kamalakanta Vishwas came, he then explained, what you wrote is true, that he is Mahavishnu. So that's just fine. But how can Mahavishnu be a debtor to anybody? So from this day forward, I declare it boldly. This was the lesson, that persons who are in elevated positions should never accept money from materialists. Meaning, King Prataparudra was a materialist. Indra, he wasn't saying it directly, but that's what he is saying, because it makes the mind polluted. So everyone understood the lesson that had been just portrayed was for them, for their edification. He was using Advaita Acharya and his personal secretary, Kamalakanta Vishwas, to teach all of the Vaishnavas an important lesson. A nice feature of Advaita Acharya's activities with Lord Chaitanya. Advaita Acharya considered Lord Chaitanya as Krishna himself. He wanted to worship Lord Chaitanya. And this was a transcendental competition. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, was a young man. And he regarded Advaita Acharya as Mahavishnu. So he was playing the role of a devotee, honoring Mahavishnu, honoring Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya as Mahavishnu wanted to honor Lord Chaitanya as Krishna. So it was an interesting tug of war, transcendental tug of war, between their moods of love for one another. Very, very sweet dimension on the rasa platform. There's another nice story where Advaita Acharya, as a householder, was inviting both Lord Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to accept meals at his home. That's what you see in this painting. So one time when they invited them, Nityananda performed the pastime of being a mad avaduta. He said, "What kind of householder are you? You haven't even given me one morsel to satisfy my voracious appetite." And he took some rice and threw it on the floor. And some grains of rice stuck to Advaita Acharya's leg, and he started dancing, as you see. They had some very interesting back and forth conversation. He criticized Lord Nityananda, saying, you're a madman. So just be happy with what the Supreme Lord provides you, and just sit peacefully and stop being so crazy. Nice exchange you'll find in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in many, many places, Advaita Acharya is found as part of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan party. When the Ratha Yatra was performed, Advaita Acharya, even despite his age, he was one of the dancers. He loved Lord Chaitanya. He loved the holy name. Even before Lord Chaitanya appeared, he loved the chanting and dancing, and he loved participating in Lord Chaitanya's wonderful pastimes. And when the pastimes were completed, there's a very nice section where Advaita Acharya requested one Brahmin to carry a message to Lord Chaitanya in the form of a riddle. And the translation of that riddle in English: "Please inform Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is acting like a madman, that everyone here has become mad like him. Inform him also that in the marketplace rice is no longer in demand. Further, tell him that those now mad in ecstatic love are no longer interested. in the material world. Also, tell Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one who has also become a madman in ecstatic love, namely himself, has spoken these words. Now, it was a riddle. No one could understand the riddle. Something like what Vidura spoke to Yudhishthira when they were being sent to the house of lac. He spoke a riddle and no one could understand. Kunti couldn't understand. She asked Yudhishthira, what did he say? I couldn't understand. And the riddle was, there's a murder plot and it's going to be with fire, but you'll be able to escape the fire through a tunnel. That was what the riddle explained. So he then arranged for a man who knew how to excavate tunnels to go and make a tunnel right from the center of their home to the river. So this riddle was to say that the purpose of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, for which Advaita Acharya had called him to descend, had now been fulfilled. The chanting of the holy name had become successful. It had taken root. The people in Navadvip were now interested in the chanting of the holy name and worship of Krishna, not just material affairs. And they're not really so much interested about the price of rice in the marketplace. And I also have become a madman. The message was, the mission of your appearance has been fulfilled. As you so desire, you may return to your eternal abode. That was the meaning of the riddle. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shortly thereafter returned to the spiritual abode in a very interesting way. But we'll hear about those kinds of pastimes because shortly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance is going to occur. So the sequence, first Advaita Acharya's appearance in terms of the lunar calendar, certainly chronology also, then Lord Nityananda's appearance day, which is coming next week, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day. So they're all participants, these three Prabhus. They're participants in the Sankirtan movement. They each had their function, they each had their role, and of course the Lord of all those lords. So there's many nice things further to say, but I thought to have a brief presentation, simple presentation, and let's see if there's some of you who would like to raise some question or inquire further. See, we've been going for 50 minutes. Time just went flying by, right? So anybody would like to raise a question, you can unmute yourself, yes? And then speak. Or you can send something to the chat window down there, and we can read it out.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj. It was a beautiful talk, Maharaj. Very nice to hear the pastimes of Advaita Acharya. Maharaj, I'll inform the Windsor devotees. It is time for us to ask any questions. If you have, you can unmute and ask. Please proceed. Umbir Prabhu, you have a question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
So, Maharaj, you mentioned that Advaita Acharya was Mahavishnu himself.
Yes.
So then why, then she prayed to himself, Krishna, because he is Krishna himself.
But he's an expansion of Krishna.
Okay.
Mahavishnu serves Krishna. Yes?
Yes, Maharaj.
Expansion. Balaram serves Krishna, although he's Krishna himself. So those who are expansions of Krishna, they have a regard for Krishna as the one who they serve.
So in our tradition, we keep everyone at the same level?
No,
we,
no. There, we don't see everyone at the same level.
okay.
Everyone is an expansion of Krishna, but there are, amongst jivas, there are more elevated, there's grades of living entities. And then there's a supreme living entity, and amongst the supreme living entities, there's grades of those supreme living entities. And they all have the position of service to to Krishna, to the source of everything. Is that all right?
Yeah, Maharaj. Yeah.
Nice question.
So, Maharaj, for general devotees, like we should pray to Advaita Acharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Gadadhar, Nityananda Prabhu, or we just should pray Krishna at home, like.
I don't understand the question.
My question is like we should start our like myself. We are just starting, so we
Good.
should start like praying for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Advaita Acharya.
Well, we have the
Basically,
panchatattva
panchatattva.
mantra. We have the panchatattva mantra, and maybe on your altar you have a panchatattva painting.
Yeah,
So we make our panchatattva mantra, and we also have our Hare Krishna mantra. So we approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a means of approaching Krishna, Radha Krishna. And we approach Nityananda to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And in the whole of the Panchatattva, that those are the various aspects or features, or the Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. That's Prabhupada's translation. So it's one entity in different manifestations, as you already pointed out, including Srivas, who's Jiva, including Gadadhar, who's Shakti, including Mahavishnu, who's Vishnu, including Nityananda, who's Lord Chaitanya's first expansion. But one entity in 5 features. Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. So your question is, where do we begin? You worship Lord Chaitanya in the form of panchatattva. And through that mercy that you get from Lord Chaitanya and the panchatattva, you approach Radha Krishna.
thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Okay?
Do anyone else, invested devotees, anyone else have any questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just have a question. So, what is the difference between expansion and avatar?
They may be the same, but the terms avatar means one who descends from the spiritual world into this world, one who descends. That's avatar. And expansion, there's different categories of expansion, as was already brought up. Living entities, they're also expansions. They're expansions of Krishna's marginal potency. We're expansions of Krishna, Krishna's marginal potency. And there's plenary expansions, where it's the full feature of Krishna, like a candle lighting another candle. So those are expansions, and sometimes those expansions may descend, sometimes they may stay in the Vaikuntha realm. But avatar means one who descends. Okay? All right? Okay.
Maharaj, I have a question, Maharaj. Can I ask you?
Please?
Maharaj, in the lecture you mentioned about even at the level of being the personal secretary of Mahaprabhu, one can get enamored by Mayavad philosophy. That was actually a little horrifying, Maharaj. I mean, how would, when somebody is there with Mahaprabhu, can even get attracted towards Mayavad philosophy?
It wasn't Mayavad philosophy. They were sense gratifier people, the Bhattaharis, they were called, and they were womenizers. And, they took alcohol. And, they were party people, forest dwelling party people. So he became attracted by the ladies. And so he was lured by the ladies and went off into the Bhattahari association. So it's still the question, it's not just Mayavad, it's being in Lord Chaitanya's association. How can you get lured by anything? That's your question. Yeah.
Yes.
So Maya is very strong. Don't feel, Prabhupada warned us, his followers, never become casual or flirt with Maya. He would speak like that sometimes, that you Western disciples, you have a tendency to flirt with Maya. He used the example, you're on a tree and you go out on a limb waiting to hear the sound of the limb cracking, and then you rush back to the trunk of the tree. Don't do that. Don't take risks with Maya. So it even in Lord Chaitanya's direct association, that happened. So what to speak of us? We should be very careful to stay in the proper position and in good association. As soon as he came back to Lord Chaitanya's association, he was fine. It was one of those apichet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak. So his steady position, he was selected amongst all the Vaishnavas in Puri to be Lord Chaitanya's brahmachari assistant because of his gentle manner and good conduct and so forth. But there's, using Prabhupada's phrase, even on the royal road, there's risk. So one can have an accident, even on the royal road. So we should be careful. We're practicing bhakti, and we're serving and worshipping and so forth. Still be careful. That's the lesson.
Thank you, Maharaj. That helped me so much. Thank you, Maharaj. Any other questions from Venture devotees? Do any of you have any other questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question little bit aligns with Kadam Khanam Prabhuji. We jivas, we are here in material world because before, as we are reading in Bhagavad Gita, we were in the Vaikuntha.
You were doing
serving the
what?
Lord.
Before you were doing what?
In the Vaikuntha, we were serving the Lord before coming to the material
The
world.
fall of the jiva question.
Can I ask Maharaj this question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, at some point, we got envious with the
No.
Lord.
No. Two things. Three things. We've had this discussion several evenings. Second thing, Bhaktivinoda Thakur teaches that, the year that Srila Prabhupada was born was 1896. That's the very same year that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote in English language a little booklet that he sent to universities all around the world at his own expense, postage and printing and everything, because he wanted them to know who was Lord Chaitanya. He wanted, at least in universities, the educated people should know. So the title of the book was Sri Chaitanya, His Life and Precepts. So it had two parts, his life, the Leela, and the precepts, And in the precepts section, he taught their 10 essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It was a standard of his 100 books, probably in 80 of his 100 books, called Dasa Mula Tattva. Mula, you know, root. Like mulis, right? Dasa Mula Tattva, truths, 10 essential truths. And one of those truths has to do with the jiva. So listen carefully. He wrote, do not ask the misleading question. That's why I cut you off. Do not ask the because it's misleading. Oh, here's the missing document that I couldn't find. Do not ask the misleading question, when were the living entities created? Mataji, when were the living entities created? They weren't created. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. We, you and I, and all living entities, were emanations from Krishna. We're marginal potency emanations from Krishna. We're not created. We're eternally marginal living entities, part of Krishna. We're not created. It's from Bhagavad Gita. Living entities are never created. Never have been created, never will be created. Bhagavad Gita. So don't ask the misleading question, when were the living entities created? Or when they were enthralled? Because it's not an event within time. I'll explain it, because you look a little puzzled.
Yes.
It's not that once upon a time Krishna was hanging out in the material world, in the spiritual world, and he looked at his watch and said, you know what, it's time for some living entities. Boop, there's living entities. Not like that. Nor is it that once upon a time living entities were in the spiritual world and they pulled their chin, they said, you know what, let's go to this other place, the material world. Boop. That's your question. We were in this nice place and then some time passed and, something happened. It's not an event within time. It's not an event within time. Now, is there such a thing as events that are not within time? A timeless event, or, to use a nice English phrase, not a chronological event, but an ontological event. What's that? An ontological event is an event that's not within time. It's an event, but it's not an event within time. So your question was an event within time, and it's not. That's why I stopped you. And then here's a third point. We heard this just 2 evenings ago when the same topic came up. When there's a house on fire, you could ask, how did the fire get started? But your business, when the house is on fire, is get out of the house.
Yeah.
And after you get out of the house, then you're in the position to ask, how did that fire get started anyways? So you can read in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, I forget the verse number, but Krishna uses the word anadi. Adi means something with a beginning. Like once upon a time we were in the spiritual world, and then, boop, we decided to come to the material world. But that's adi, and then there's anadi. There's a beginningless event. And Prabhupada writes in that purport the very same thing. You will not be able to, you and me and any of us will not be able to understand what an anadi event is. However intelligent you are, you won't be able to understand it. But when you become liberated, then you'll be able to understand it. So your main business is to get out of the burning house. And here's one other answer to your question. In the Shastras, there's no Shastra Praman that gives the answer to your question because it's not an event within time. But there's so much Shastra, how to get out. So Mataji, give your attention how to get out, not how to get here.
Makes so much sense, Maharaj. Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
I go.
Vinsa devotees, do any of you have any other questions or? Maharaj, it looks like these are the questions we have in the
Okay, let's see if there's something in the room and you can listen because we have a microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class, Maharaj. For me, like I can say that, I struggle with some things, like for example, reading. When I read with Matajis every day, I can do that, that is my plus point, means I get motivated to read and I do it. But however, at the same time, I want to read for myself, I want to read for my family, with my family. I'm not able to do it. I tried a couple of times, I fell apart. Maybe I read half a book or maybe 1/4 of a book and that's it, I fell apart. So how do I, how do I maintain that consistency, Maharaj, in finishing the book?
Get some good glue. Prabhupada gives this nice example in Nectar Devotion about a child learning to walk. You know the example. Because there's innate capacity within a small child to walk, although when they initially try to walk, they stumble and tumble, and then mother or father come along and hold their little hand and help them walk another step or 2 or 3, and then they tumble. But by practice and practice and practice, the walking capacity comes out because it's already there. Just needs to be brought out. Similarly, this question you're bringing, it's just practice. Or, maybe you can ask one of your family members, can you come and ask me? And if you're busy with your homework, because he has 2 children, son and a daughter. So, take turns. Then we'll read together. So you figure out. Where there's a will, there's a way. You figure out a way, and you just take help from those that can help you, and you do. Little by little. And if you falter or fall apart, as you put it, then you get up and try again. Taking help from those who are kind well-wishers. Something else?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Anything? You got homework.
Maharaj, Advaita Acharya petitioned Krishna to appear in Navadvip, and I was just wondering, when was the time that they all realized that it was Krishna who appeared? And
Advaita Acharya knew. He didn't have to realize anything. He knew. Others revealed when Lord Chaitanya had the Mahaprakash Leela. then he revealed. Mahaprakash Leela, for those that are you're new, there was a particular evening during every evening when Lord Chaitanya and his associates would have evening kirtan. One evening, he just sat right on the throne and the altar and said, "Worship me." And, they didn't know what to do, so they worshipped him. And then he started revealing the truths of his identity to them one by one, for each person, their eternal position in relation to Krishna. That's called the Maha Prakash Leela. Very special. Okay?
And another question is, like, when Lord Chaitanya went to South India on the pretext of finding his brother,
Yeah.
does he find him, or?
He was already deceased.
Oh.
And he knew it. But he went on the pretext. And I believe we have some online questions, probably. Your folks there don't mind hearing some online questions, or?
Yes, Maharaj. We are fine, Maharaj. Please
Okay.
proceed.
Okay.
Question from Vinodani Devidasi from Bangalore.
Bangalore. Okay.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that one shouldn't accept donation from a materialistic person with regards to the pastime of Kamalakanta Vishwas.
Yes.
In our lives, how should we draw the line in following the above principle? Especially when, 1, we accept donations in temples from people who are materialistic by nature, and 2, we want to serve others knowing that we have a strong materialistic nature in us.
Well, the teaching that Lord Chaitanya gave is not how, in a straight line, A to B straight line, that the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has proceeded. That is to say, not just in temples, but people that are materialistic receive books, and they give donations for those books. So it's a means of purification. The distinction that Prabhupada would make for us is when donations are received or even requested, it's not for self-aggrandizement or for one's own personal use. Rather, it purifies the person by giving that donation, and so we're a conduit, not for ourselves, but giving to Krishna that which the person who is materialistic has sacrificed for Krishna's service. So if we do that transparently, then it's beneficial for the person who gives, and it doesn't stick to the person who receives. Now, the second part of your question, I wasn't really clear. You are likening yourself to someone who is materialistic, and you're enjoying the materialistic part of getting some money from a materialistic person? I didn't quite follow it. Could you read it again?
The second part is, we want to serve others knowing that we have a strong materialistic nature in us.
Well, you have to purify that materialistic nature in us. And you do that by trying to be an instrument of higher authority, spiritual master, our founder Acharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the deities. You connect that which is not fully pure yet with the service of the Supreme Lord, and you strive in that direction.
Question. Oh,
Anything further?
No, Maharaj.
Okay.
More questions.
More questions.
Question from Apurva Anand. If someone has criticized his Siksha Guru who loves him because of ignorance and immaturity, what should he do so that Lord Chaitanya forgives him?
Well, who's criticized who now?
I think the disciple has criticized his Siksha Guru.
Someone who's a bhakta somebody or other has criticized their Shiksha Guru. That's the situation?
Yes, Maharaj.
And now, what's the question? What should the person who is criticized do?
So that Lord Chaitanya forgives him.
Okay. You go to the person who's been offended and you fall at their feet. That's what Lord Chaitanya wanted Mother Sachi to do. Fall at the feet. Request forgiveness from Advaita Acharya. That's what that pastime teaches us. The answer to your question is right in the pastime. Next.
Snehavalli Devidasi asks, why would Advaita Acharya be interested in seeing the universal form of Krishna? He has already seen the Mahaprakash Leela of Lord Chaitanya. Was that universal form the same material temporary form?
I don't know what his motivation was. It doesn't say what his motivation was. And I'm not sure that the chronology is correct, that the Mahaprakash Leela took place before that made that request. Whether it was before or after is actually not so critical. Why did he want to see the universal form? Perhaps the same reason that Arjuna wanted to see the universal form. We hear from our founder Acharya, he wanted so that people in the future who are imitators could be asked, please show me your universal form. He was wanting Lord Chaitanya to show his divinity. He wanted Lord Chaitanya to show his divinity. Now, he could have asked him to show his divinity some other way. Show your form of Radha and Krishna or whatever else he wanted. But it's for one reason is show his divinity. So that imitators can be rightly called imitators. Next.
Question from Sanchari Dasi. What was the difference in the gopis cursing Akrura and Mother Sachi speaking about Advaita Acharya? Also, I've read that Sachi Mata and Mother Yashoda are one in the same, yet we see more of Mother Sachi's reaction to the separation than we ever really do of Mother Yashoda. Is there a reason why?
Okay, you just threw two things at me, and I can't catch both of them. Let's do the second one because you just said it. Is there some reason why Mother Sachi is feeling more separation than Mother Yashoda? That's the question? Is that the question?
Just going through it again.
Huh?
Really in the question, I mean.
Yes, Maharaj. Why is Mother Sachi's reaction more than...
Well, we don't know precisely what Mother Yashoda went through. When Uddhava visits Vrindavan, we've had the first place he goes is Nanda and Yashoda's home. And there are descriptions of the extreme torment that Mother Yashoda was going through. But one big difference between the two, besides the Chaitanya Charitamrita gives details about Sachi, whereas the Bhagavatam doesn't give details about Yashoda. It's not expounded upon. But Sachi had no husband. Yashoda did. And that's a big, big difference. Like Kripi. Dronacharya was killed, and all she had left was Ashvatthama. So what Draupadi considers is, I have my husbands and she doesn't. So it's a place of shelter for a cultured woman, that there's shelter for her. But in case of Sachi, she had 8 daughters die. 1 son took sannyas. Her husband died, and all she had left was Lord Chaitanya, and he took sannyas. So it very severe, shelter-wise. And then the first question, do you have it in front of you?
The first question is, what was the difference in the gopis cursing Akrura and Mother Sachi speaking about Advaita Acharya?
Well, the curse of the gopis to Advaita Acharya, to Akrura, was, we have had to undergo separation from Krishna, you will also. As us, so you also. And it wasn't like spite or tit for tat. It was, this is the consequence of leaving the gopis deprived of Krishna's association. And Mother Sachi didn't curse. She was just distressed. And she spoke out of distress. No, the gopis were also speaking out of distress, but it wasn't a curse. She just, I'm really upset with Advaita Acharya, and she spoke the way that she spoke. It wasn't a curse. And she's a mother. She gets away with stuff because she's a mother. Very senior Mataji in the whole of Navadvip. She has some privileges. That's it. Okay. Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Advaita Acharya ki jai.
Jai.